What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here, and I want to talk to you about a book that I finished reading recently. This is Batman, the Sunday Classics, 1943 through 1946. This is, as the title suggests, a collection of Sunday newspaper comics featuring Batman and Robin. Back in the 1940s, instead of newspaper comics being like they are now, where a Sunday strip would be maybe 8 panels, and then a daily strip throughout the week would be like 3 panels. Back in the 1940s, they would have like 2 or 3 pages of newspaper comics that were an insert into the paper. And so like an issue of Batman or whatever, an episode of Batman would be an entire page. So like that would be like an entire Sunday, this whole page. And that's what they did back then. And so this book collects several different storylines that were running through those few years where Batman was a Sunday comic as well as a comic book character. And basically, there's like, I think 26 chapters here. The chapters go from being 2 pages long to being about 10 pages long. And I have to say, the content of these stories isn't very good at all. If you've read some of the early Batman from Batman Chronicles, where Batman is appearing in the actual DC Comics and not in the newspapers, if you've read that stuff, you probably would rather read that than read this. I've just recently read Batman Chronicles, and I didn't think it was very good. I thought it was more interesting from a historical perspective. You get to see the first appearance of the Joker, you get to see the first appearance of Robin, the first appearance of the Batarang and the Batmobile, stuff like that, but it's not necessarily good storytelling. It's more, oh, hey, this is weird. It took them this long for this particular part of the Batman mythos to appear. It's stuff like that that I really enjoyed about Batman Chronicles. But the thing is, with this, there's never really an opportunity to explore the story. Because the longest story that we have in these newspaper comics is maybe 10 pages, it's really just something happens, Batman and Robin go and investigate it, and then they stop it. There's nothing more complex or complicated than that. And it's really hard to describe what I'm talking about, but most of these stories here, like I said, there's 26 chapters, I think. I would say over 16 of them are just normal bad guys doing pretty mundane, normal crimes, and then Batman putting a stop to it. There's one that's these guys this one guy trying to start these fires in a forest, and he's trying to blame this pyromaniac so that he can go and rob a bank in the town near this forest. It's a pretty mundane crime. It's an interesting story, I guess. I didn't really think that they would touch on something like pyromania back in the 1940s, but it's pretty mundane compared to, say, in Batman Chronicles Volume 1, you have a dirigible that is actually blowing up New York City. That is much more exciting, much more adrenaline pumping than something like a dude is starting fires so that he can go and rob a bank. And most of the stories in this book are much more toned down, much more mundane compared to what you would get in the comics from around the same time period. You do get one Joker story, one Catwoman story, one Two-Face story, and 2 Penguin stories. Other than that, all the bad guys here, all the stories here, are much more toned down than what you would expect in a Batman comic. So don't let the back of this book fool you into thinking that this is a whole bunch of Batman villains that are fighting Batman in the Sunday Funnies. That's not the case. These guys barely even show up in this book. I have to say, there's not much more to say about this book. Like I said, when you don't have that much room to tell a story, the story can't really go anywhere. It's pretty much exactly like you think it would happen. Something happens, and then Batman and Robin go and stop it. Back in the 40s, though, you had, I think, around 20 pages that you could tell a story at the time. Maybe a little less than that, because back in the early 40s, a comic book would be like 60-something pages long, but there would be multiple stories in a 60-something page comic book. And so you had more room and more space to tell a story in, say, Batman Chronicles Volume 1 than you do in this book right here. So if you're like me, the reason that I bought this book is because I'm a huge Batman fan, and I was on a mission to get as many Batman books as I could. And I saw this, and I thought, I've never seen that anywhere before. And I got it, and it was okay. It wasn't bad. I don't think there was really anything here that just made me wish that I wasn't reading it. It's not like it's the worst thing in the world, but it's also there's nothing really good here that is going to make me recommend that you buy this and read this. Ultimately, it's just kind of there. And those are my thoughts on the Batman Sunday Funnies from 1943 to 1946. If you guys have read this, let me know what you thought of the book in the comments below. And if you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you liked it, tell me that you liked this video in the comments. And I will see you guys later in the week with a different kind of video. And I'll see you guys next week with some other videos. So be safe, and I'll see you guys in the future. Have a great rest of the day.